You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
All right, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast. As always, this is Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com. And look, if you need help finding more motivated seller leads and deals online, you know where to go. It's AdWordsNerds.com. All right, folks, you can tell my energy level is good today. I feel awesome because I just finished my second interview with Mike Simmons. Now, if you missed the episode a couple episodes back, Mike is an incredibly successful real estate investor and coach and mentor. He works in his investing business 2 hours a week, and they do over 100 deals a year. Not only that, but I got to tell you that I talk to a lot of people in investing. I know a lot of real estate investors. They're great people, but Mike is one of the most grounded and happy and comfortable in his own skin people you are ever going to meet in this industry. He is one of my absolute favorites. And I knew after the first interview that I wanted to bring him on. I knew immediately that I wanted to have him on for another interview because we barely touched the surface the first time around. And so in this interview, we talk about the ways that investors blow themselves up. We talk about the defining characteristics of investors that go on to be successful. We talk about how he started to implement systems in his business that removed him from the process and how that whole thing came to be. We talk about retirement. We talk about family. We talk about all sorts of stuff. Oh, and my single favorite takeaway, Mike talks about his Moneyball number, the KPI. That was the sort of cornerstone of everything he did in his business. It personally had a big impact on me. I know it's going to have a big impact on you. So without any further ado, let's jump into my interview with Mike Simmons from MikeSimmons.com. All right, this is Daniel Barrett, and I'm here again with Mike Simmons from MikeSimmons.com. Michael, thank you so much for coming back on, man. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm glad you asked me to. I'm excited about it. I always have a lot of fun talking to you, so thank you.
Yeah, and so we were kind of crunched in the first episode. We were talking, and there was a million and one different ways I wanted to go. But let's start with kind of systems and processes. We talked a little bit about systems and processes last episode, but I wanted to kind of stop there and stay there for a little bit because one of the things that's really fascinating to me about you is that both that your investing business is really successful, but also that you don't spend a ton of time on it. Obviously, you're very busy. You're doing a whole bunch of different things. You've got, the kind of lending part of the business, got the coaching part of the business, et cetera. So let's start with that because I know that a lot of investors, when they start investing, the fantasy is, they have the fantasy where it's I'm on the beach and it's nice and there's passive cash flow. And, it's every time someone says passive cash flow to me, my eyes kind of roll because I'm I don't know. The more passive, quote unquote, it is, the harder it seems to be. But in any case, so take us back to the beginning. You're doing the investing business. I assume it was not always I'm working 2 hours a week or whatever. So
no.
Take us back to the beginning when you were getting started. What were the problems you were running into, and then how did you get from there to kind of where you are now? And we can take that all different sorts of directions.
Yeah. So my business had a couple of different arcs, and so when I first started, I was working full time in the automotive industry. Yeah. My wife was my partner in my business with me, and it was 2008, 2009. So getting deals, this is going to sound weird to people who are just getting into the business now or haven't been in it very long, but getting deals was easy. It was almost how many do I want? It was finding deals was the easiest thing in the world. But getting them sold and being profitable was my biggest challenge because I was in a declining market. And so if I didn't buy it low enough or didn't move fast enough, my ARV or my after repair value was going to change for the worst if I didn't do it quickly, right? So it's different challenges than they're facing now. The biggest problem that I was facing, two of them, and one of them is going to be real familiar to people who are working a full-time job. My job was in my way. I couldn't respond to things the way I wanted to because I had a job that required me to be present and be in it. And I was in an office, and it was a open air office. So what that means is I couldn't close a door and have discretion. I was like, everyone could hear every conversation I had.
It was like cubicle sort of situation, or what was it?
It wasn't even cubicles. I worked for a German company. I guess it was, but the cubicle wall height was about waist level. So it wasn't even like when I'm sitting, I was looking directly at the face of the person across from me.
By the way, so just to break in, whoever thought this kind of thing was a good idea, I just do not understand it. But I've never actually worked in this environment, but like having walked around some of them, it seems like a nightmare. Was that like a nightmare to be in, or?
Yeah, it was sort of a nightmare to be in. If you really needed to have privacy, not because you, even in your, like if you just wanted to have a conversation where you didn't hear anybody else talking and you didn't sound like you were in a call center, you had to get up and like walk somewhere where no one was, and it wasn't your desk, so you weren't at your computer. It wasn't convenient. It's a terrible idea, honestly. This company, I could go into great detail about the silliness of rules that they had, starting with the open air and then ending with, at the end of the day, your desk had to be completely clear of everything except your phone. And if it wasn't, managers would come around and take a picture. You would be called by HR the next morning, and you'd have to explain why you left a notebook on your desk or why you left a folder on your desk. They wanted it clean at the end of the night. That was priority to them. And it's like,
because they were going to let you go. They're just like, we have to be able to let anyone go at a moment's notice. Like, what was the deal?
I get no, because here's the greatest. This is the stupidest thing. They had technically what they considered shared workspaces. And so anybody should be able to go sit down at any desk anywhere that they're walking in the company, just sit down and start working if they wanted to. Makes no sense. It's a stupid priority. Well, anyways, so going back to real estate. So my challenge was I didn't have a lot of time to work on my business, and my wife and she was working full time too. And so we just had so much limited time, and we had no to talk about processes. Like we had no processes. Every deal we got was like brand new adventure for us. Like, wow, where are we going to buy materials? What color are we going to paint the walls? Like we just reinvented the wheel every single time. And, it caused us to be completely inefficient. We didn't have a lot of time to begin with. The time we had, we were using poorly. And in the beginning, we were looking at the scope of work on a house, and we were picking out the things that we could do and saying, well, we'll just paint the basement. We will just hang this whatever, right? This door. And it's like, when you do that, yes, you can do it. Yes, you will save money because you won't have to pay somebody else to do it. But it'll almost inevitably take you way longer. And so we were slowing down our own projects. So we're paying more holding costs, we're paying more taxes, we're paying more insurance. And it was just like all these inefficiencies and illogical kind of thoughts that we were having were manifesting itself into longer timelines, higher budgets in the end. And it was just sort of like we were just making every mistake in the world.
I mean, it strikes me as like it's the kind of like stepping over dollars to pick up pennies kind of thing. But because the costs that you're talking about, right, which are like the ARV value going down, right, or those costs are kind of invisible. It's easy to look at it at the moment and say, well, I'm saving, $1,000 here, and not think about the potential sort of incurred costs that's going to be kind of down the road, right? We were just talking about off camera. We were talking about how people in general tend to discount the future for the present. So how are you able to get out of the moment in order to see the bigger picture and start working on it, right? Because part of the problem I think people run into is they're so busy that it's hard to literally take the time and sit down and like, okay, let's really think about what we're trying to achieve, what the system is, where the constraint might be. So how did you get out of the moment in order to be able to start do that? Like, what was it? Did you read something? Did someone tell you to do it? Like, what was the deal?
I'll tell you, I had a unique experience, and I'm going to tell you this, and it's going to sound like I'm speaking behind my wife's back, but she's heard this story and she agrees 100%. Okay. Here's what happened. My wife and I were flipping houses. Even though we were inefficient and we were sort of not going about it a great way, we were still having success. We were getting some traction. We were making money. And in our local community of real estate investors, we were becoming mini celebrities. Like people were asking us to speak at REIAs and how are you doing it? And so in my own very self-critical nature, I was like, we're doing this all wrong. But outwardly, people were like celebrating us, right? So I got to the point where I started to think I could do no wrong in real estate. That's when you know you're about to hit a wall. And so
about to explode is when you're like,
yeah. I felt like this car could never crash. I'm just going to take a quick nap. And so I started working with a partner in a tangential kind of a way to real estate. It wasn't really real estate. What it was is they call them AFC, adult foster care facilities. And so I worked with this guy who had health industry connections, like doctors and things. And he knew what I did. And he's like, hey, why don't you find the facilities, you renovate them, you maintain them, I'll bring residents in. The model, the business model is phenomenal, right? You have up to 6 people in like a single family residential home, each of them paying $2,000 to $5,000 a month for full-time care, right? Healthcare. And the money is insane, right? And so I saw this model. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. This makes total sense. I'm not going to flip houses. I'm going to do this, right? The problem is I don't have any healthcare industry contacts. I don't nothing, right? All I could do was find the house. The entire survival of the business was dependent on this partner of mine, his connections and his ability to pull his weight in this arrangement. Well, you can see where this is going. I found the house and I renovated it and it was great. He wasn't able to hold up his end of the bargain. And so what happens with an AFC, if anyone's listening to this, because this is a thing in real estate, people do go this route sometimes. Yeah. When you have 6 residents, it's a cash cow. I mean, when I say cash cow, it's like insane how much money can be made. But you have to have full-time health care in that house at all times, whether you have 6 people in it or 1 person. Right. The break even is 3 residents. That's where you break even, right? 3. 4, 5, and 6 are profit. 1 and 2 are you're losing. Oh. And so I got to a situation where there was only 1 person in the house. We had full-time care. It was hemorrhaging money. The way it makes money with 6, it hemorrhages with 1. And so I got out of that, right? Lost like $30,000 in a very short period of time. The reason I'm telling you all this is because prior to that, when I was flipping houses, we were being celebrated. We were doing a good job outwardly, but my wife is very conservative. And so we would be working on a house and I'd go, we got to get another one. And she'd go, whoa, slow down, cowboy. We're going to do this one. We're going to finish it. We're going to get paid. And then we'll go to the next one. And I was like this racehorse that was constantly trying to go faster and she was reining me back, right? Probably good because I would have made tons of mistakes in the beginning by going too fast. But once this AFC thing happened and blew up in our face, she's like, all right, we have to take a 6-month break here. Can we just clear our heads for 6 months and do nothing? No real estate, no nothing. And I said, fair. We just lost 30 grand. I can't really argue that. We screwed it up and you're stressed out. You're having trouble sleeping. Let's do that. And we did. After 6 months, I was like, 6 months. It has been 6 months. Let's go. And she said, you know what? I get it. You love it. I don't feel like I want to get back into that. The roller coaster of real estate even is just too much. I'm not built for this. She goes, I support you. I love you. I trust you. You go do what you have to do. I don't want to hear the details because it just stresses me out. And it was like, you just gave a 16-year-old keys to a Ferrari and said, go as fast as you want. And I did. And so the reason I'm telling you all this is your question was, how did I ever get out of the moment and start being a little bit more like looking down the road and being a little more systematized? Because I went out and started buying 2 and 3 houses at a time. I went nuts, right? And when I did that, I knew I couldn't be involved in any one house. I could not be there like swinging a hammer, painting walls, none of that. I had to start building a team and I had to start doing something that was repeatable. So when I got a new house, I could tell my contractor, same cabinets, same paint, same flooring in all these houses. Like just, it's the same, right? Just put them in and let's go. And so I started creating a process and material list and a system that I knew I was going to repeat because I was going too fast not to. And so my own appetite for speed forced me to sort of not homogenize, that sounds wrong, but like get some consistency across the board with what I was doing. Because I didn't have time to go to Home Depot and pick new paint, pick new flooring. I just said, this is our paint, this is our flooring. I kind of created like an A, B, and C level house. Right. Real nice houses where this is an A house, this is a B house, this is a C house, and go. And so that's sort of was how I started the thought process of having some kind of a system that I'm following.
I think it's a cool story, right? Because you sort of have that enforced break, and it sort of allows you when, there's like this kind of principle, right? Where it's like, you don't really know what you really value until you sort of lose it for a little while. It's like the fact that you went through these kind of really tough experiences, you lost a bunch of money, right? Was really disheartening. I can imagine the fact that you were chomping at the bit 6 months later, right? It's like, oh, you went to go box and got your butt kicked, and now you want to get back in the ring. That's probably a good sign that that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
But the thing that you were talking about, how is like A level house, B level house, C level house. It reminds me of in the like sort of Toyota manufacturing, sort of when Toyota is sort of becoming the manufacturing giant that it ultimately became, and they're sort of developing the stuff that would later go on to become lean and all this kind of process improvement stuff. Right? It's like one of their principles was single minute change of die, which was there was like a machine that had a certain part in it, and every single car would have a different die that would be needed to put into this machine, and sort of before it can sort of continue down the runway. And they would lose like 10 minutes on this process of just, you got to change the thing. And so they instituted this whole principle where it's like all the parts had to be very quickly interchangeable. Like all the different die would come from different manufacturers. Instead, they just made their own, because they were like, we should be able to change the die in a single minute, right? Because it's the process of changing from we got to do this way to then we got to figure out a whole different way to do it to doing this different way. It's that time lost to sort of switching tasks where so much efficiency goes away. So it sounds like a big part of your process, you could correct me if I'm wrong, was you sort of reduced the amount of time. Like if like a new investor might go to the house and be like, what do we want to do here? And does it need this? Does it need that? It sounds like you were sort of arranging your business. So before you even got there, you knew kind of what you wanted to do or where it sort of fit in the process. Was that part of it for you, as sort of making it a template or like just easily repeatable like that?
Yeah, it was. And I also realized that when I was trying to switch things up, it was very difficult for my contractor to keep track of what I wanted to do with what house, what colors, what cabinets. And so it was easy for me, but more importantly, it reduced the amount of communication needed with my contractor, which is huge, right? So the contractor clarity with them, and a lot of times, and I don't want to like rail on contractors, but they're colossal pain in the ass a lot of times. When they have a question, some contractors will ask, and some will make assumptions. And so a lot of them make assumptions because they want to just keep moving. And so they would make assumptions, especially before I was doing this full time. When I was working part time, they couldn't get a hold of me, and they would make assumptions. So I would have to go into the property like the next day, and I'd go, wait, these are not the cabinets I wanted. And they're like, well, I couldn't remember because you did this one last time. And it's like, I realized, wait a minute, I am causing confusion that's costing me money. They have to know we buy Home Depot off-the-shelf cabinets, and there's like at the time there was like chocolate, natural, and white, right? That's it. That's all we use, chocolate, natural, or white. And we used white and chocolate. We never used neutral. And then that's all they had to remember was, is this white or dark? Like, which one is it? And so I cut down on the amount of confusion I was causing with contractors. Even if I could keep track of it, contractors don't always. And I wasn't the only job he was working on, right? He had other clients. And so I just needed to streamline it and cut it down so that it's like, I equate it a little bit to like, I don't know anybody cares about the NFL or football, but sometimes you bring a quarterback onto a new team and they don't give them the whole playbook. They give him a very condensed version of it so that he doesn't have a lot to learn or think about. There's only a couple of plays, and we're just going to run these couple of plays until you figure things out. I was treating my contractors like that. Like, I don't want you to have a lot of variables. I'm going to reduce the variables, so I'll reduce the guesswork, I'll reduce the mistakes, and thereby reduce my extra cost.
And so much of that time savings, right? It's kind of invisible before you do it, right? You don't really realize how much time is sort of seeping out in the email back and forth, right? But you have these downstream effects of just making it a much simpler decision. That's really, really cool. So let's think about it today, right? So you work with investors, you have coaching students that are, your coaching programs are wildly successful, like doing really well. You work with investors through your lending programs, right? Because you have a sort of a lending arm of your business, and so you're working with investors. For your money, when you meet someone where you feel like they have it together, right? Like what are the indicators to you? You're like, okay, this person has their stuff down, like they know what's going on. Is there something you look for in the business or even in the investor, their personality, where you're like, this person's going to be able to figure it out, or they've got it figured out already? Like, how do you tell? Is there a way to tell?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've never been asked that before. There's definitely common denominators with people that I find that have success, or I think they're going to have success. It's a really good question, man. So I think one of the things that I notice that's very common with people that I feel like I really can tell. If you introduce me to someone and you ask me if I think they're going to be good in the industry, I can probably tell you in 10 minutes. It's because there's an optimism with people who I find that are successful. There's a sense that they don't throw up. I call them yeah butters. They don't say yeah but to everything you say. They say they're more yes and, butter face. I got it. A yeah butter face. A yeah butter face. Exactly. Yeah, he's a nice guy, but he's a yeah butter.
He's a yeah butter.
Yeah, butter face. So they don't when they ask you how to do something or ask your opinion or ask your advice, they don't go, well, that won't work in my case, right? They take it and they do it. When I was, if you look at a graph of my business, like from 2008 to 2015, there was a steady but not dramatic incline, right? It was going up, but it wasn't like nothing to write home about. Nobody was getting that excited.
Right.
But at 2015, it almost goes straight up. It's like hockey stick growth, they call it, right? It was like skyrocket growth. And so when I have shown people that when I've given presentations or whatever, the obvious question is, well, what happened right here? Like, I don't really care what you did back here in the beginning, and I don't necessarily even care what you're doing right now. I want to know what you did right here, right? And what I did right there was I started seeking out the advice of people who were highly successful, way more successful than me, and had been successful for a while. And the key thing that I did or didn't do, depending on how you look at it, was question them or be skeptical when they told me what they thought I should do. I just did it, right? And so one of my superpowers is I take direction really well when I feel like it's someone I should be taking direction from. And it's probably because I was raised by a Marine, and you just don't question directions when you're raised by, and when I say Marine, I mean like what you picture when like stereotype the cartoon character of a Marine. Yeah, totally. And so I met this guy named Andy McFarland. He's still a very close friend of mine.
Yeah, excellent, really successful investor, awesome guy.
Yeah, you know.
I know. I think I met him once, and I know of him just kind of like through seeing his work and stuff. He's really. The way he crosses over with me is that he does really well online, right? So a lot of times, like when I study a given market or other competition, like I'll come across either stuff that he's done or, whatever. He's very, very smart.
I forgot you guys do have crossover, but so a good friend of mine, good investor, good businessman. And I was lucky enough to be able to be on some calls with him and some one-on-one stuff. And at the time I said, hey, Andy, you were where I am about 4 or 5 years ago. You were me, and now you're you, right? How did you get there? What did you do, right? And he told me exactly what he did. And I said, okay, so if you did that in 4 or 5 years time, and Andy's a conservative guy for people who don't know him. He's not like this wild hair on fire, risk everything guy. He's a little bit conservative. But I said, if you did that in 4 or 5 years with hindsight, right? With the benefit of hindsight, you know what you did right and what you did wrong. Is that something you think I could replicate in a shorter amount of time, like a year or two? And he's like, absolutely, you could. If you take my advice and you avoid the pitfalls that I had to go through. And so I was able to do that. I was able to turn that switch and do it very, very fast. But I did it. I didn't question him. I didn't say, well, you're in Utah, I'm in Michigan. Right. It doesn't work that way in my like all the stuff you hear people say. I hear this all the time. It doesn't work that way in my market. Yes, it does. And so when he told me what to do, I was already doing it before he was finished talking because I just implemented. And that's what I see in people that are successful. They believe they can do it. They believe it when they seek advice from someone that they should be seeking advice from, and they get the advice. They actually do it. They don't just go, hey, Dan, how do I, this online, pay-per-click thing, like, how do I get leads? How do I set that up? And you tell them, I go, oh, okay. And then they go, oh, Mr. X, how do I do? And they ask the same question.
Yeah.
They just do it when you tell them because you're an authority on that. So I find successful people are implementers. They're not always the smartest people. And I don't mean that as a joke even. It's not like, oh boy, you really have to be real sharp to get this right. No, you don't. You have to be an implementer. You have to execute on ideas and not just curate ideas constantly. You have to implement them. And the people who do that, and they believe it when someone tells them they can do it, and not just rah or like an affirmation, but like, hey, you can do it, and here's how you do it. This is what I think you should do. And they implement it. Those are the winners. Those are the people that succeed. When people I talk to people all the time, like you said. I give advice, I coach. I can almost tell you the people who are going to be successful after I'm done talking to them. I can tell by the way they respond to me. And so, yeah, man, that's probably the biggest thing as an indicator for me.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Because I think people want to know that the plan is going to work 100% before they get started.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is, even like in the case of like, so for example, Andy gives you really good advice. It is going to be different from you. You're different. Your market's different. It's a different time or whatever, but you still have to get started so you can figure out where you need to deviate from the plan and where you don't need to. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, like the metaphor that I'll often use is like you are crossing a stream. You want to get to the other side, but the stream is deep enough where you can't really see where the rocks are and where there is a place to step and where there isn't. So you could spend all your time trying to figure it out and like plot the perfect course across, or you could just get started then and feel around where the next rock is and move to that one, right? So, I mean, you have clearly, so it's high on my mind because I retook the Kolbe the sort of personality test. I don't know if you've ever taken this, but the Kolbe has like different ways of classifying you. You strike me as a very much like a fast start type of person, right? It's like, just start. Right. So it's like you just get started. Right. And it's such a critical element because while fact finding, research, all that stuff is really important, if you do so much of that you never actually get moving, you never start to gain momentum, you can't apply what you learn to that process. So here's the flip side of that question, right? Because we were talking about how do you know who's successful? Mm-hmm. You also coach, it's like you coach, you work with, you have a podcast as well. The name of the podcast is Just Start, or what's the podcast?
Just Start Real Estate. Yeah, Just Start Real Estate,
right?
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed part 1 of this episode. It's just too good to limit to one show. Join us next week to hear the rest.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.